So today I will be talking about materials for the skin. As you can see, I'm wearing a dress made of our proprietary LyoSilk. LyoSilk is 100% plant-derived silk from cellulose fibers. It is 100% machine washable. And it is also free of the toxic chemical runoff that's associated traditionally with the textile industry. Now, why is it important that we are wearing comfortable and quality materials for our skin? Now, first of all, understand that most people actually are blessed with normal, healthy skin. In my practice, I see a subset of the population who actually suffer from chronic skin disorders. An example would be atopic dermatitis, known colloquially as sensitive skin problems, or also known as eczema. So in this group of patients, from the time they are in early childhood, our advice to parents is please wear natural fibers instead of synthetic fibers. And the reason behind that is really because natural fibers such as 100% cotton, linen, and silk, these have the ability to wick moisture away from the surface of your skin and are breathable. This is in contrast to synthetic materials such as polyester, spandex. All these tend to retain moisture and occlude the skin. Besides, certain materials such as wool and acrylics actually have an uneven surface, which makes it slightly prickly. And in individuals with sensitive skin or atopic dermatitis, they are predisposed to the itch receptors being activated. So they could feel much more itchy wearing such a garment as opposed to one that is smooth and one that has minimal seams. So in our design for this dress, there were a few factors involved. Now, myself, I love fashion, but I am also very practical, pragmatic individual. So I tend not to overload my wardrobe with items that require dry cleaning. And I think in the age of this COVID pandemic, you really have to look towards comfortable clothing that also can be laundered at high temperatures. So in our design of this dress, there were a few factors. So I do see a significant number of patients who suffer from chest and back acne, and it seems to be very common in Southeast Asian countries such as Singapore, Indonesia, Thailand, because of the tropical climate. So chest and back acne is actually a form of fungal acne, which may or may not coexist with true acne. So true acne itself is predisposed by genetics, underlying sebaceous gland and oil gland overactivity, but these very same individuals have a higher risk simply because they produce more oil than the ordinary person to develop fungal acne. Fungal acne is caused by a yeast, which is a commensal. A commensal meaning that it is actually an ordinary inhabitant of your skin, so it usually doesn't cause any problems. But this yeast, also known as Malassezia furfur, tends to overgrow in humid climates. And in individuals who produce oil, it tends to cause inflammation in the form of these little bumps which are scattered over the seborrheic areas, the chest, as well as the back. Now, this dress, besides being made of the 100% moisture wicking LyoSilk, is also tested to have antimicrobial properties. I think it's very important because when we are going about our daily activities and running our errands, there is always some exposure to the outdoor elements, even though most of our living in Singapore is air conditioned. But it's important to note that if you are prone to getting chest and back acne, look for fabrics that can allow your skin to breathe. definitely you need topical treatment, and we generally treat it with topical antifungal shampoos, topical antifungal medications, sometimes topical retinoids are of use. And if there's concomitant cystic acne, for example, we treat that with oral medications. Chemical peels may also help. But in terms of prevention, it's very hard to say that there is a definitive cure for fungal acne, because as long as you are predisposed to it and you're in an environment that is humid, if you're constantly sweating, then the problem will very likely never go away. So in my personal choice of items in my wardrobe, I also look for versatility. So when I go on trips, for example, in the past, I tend to bring items which can offer me a few more options in terms of looking different, but not taking up too much of my luggage space. So I used to travel a lot for fencing competitions when I was younger, and then of course you need to pack some clothing for rest and relax, R&R time. And you also don't have much space, because as you know, we have a lot of fencing equipment, and you have the fencing bag, and you probably have like a little pocket for your daily wear. Most of the time it's filled with sports gear. But the idea for a multi-way dress came with my experimentation with scarves. So I worked with my designer to come up with this design. So this scarf is extremely versatile. I just wore it in a Zoom interview with a newspaper, and also for the cover of my upcoming book. And it's worn just across my neck. And it can also be tied to the side like this, tied into a bow or right at the waist. And I think a lot of people don't understand that the neck, for example, is an area that is particularly sensitive. So the areas behind your ears, the neck area, your elbows, the back of your knees, these are what we call flexural areas. So in dermatology, flexural areas are significant because this is where your skin is thinner, and hence it is a little bit more susceptible to conditions such as atopic dermatitis. You can get conditions known as intertrigo, which can be contributed to by overgrowth of yeast organisms such as Candida. And also, particularly if you are wearing collared clothing and you tend to sweat a bit more and the fabric is stiff or pokey in any way, you can develop dermatitis around that area. Nevertheless, as a woman, we all love to accessorize. So I thought this was something that I really loved, and hence we incorporated it into the dress. Now, moving on to the importance of wearing materials that are non-irritating for your skin. Well, I think it is important to broach this topic from a lifelong perspective. So if you think that your skin has always been fine and you're wearing polyester, spandex materials which are very tight-fitting, and yeah, so what if you sweat a little bit, right? It doesn't matter. And you've never had a problem before, do you need to consider using a hypoallergenic fabric? Well, I think in terms of wearing silk, for example, I am and I was a huge fan of it because I found that it was the most comfortable type of clothing I could have for myself, and because I'm not very tolerant of heat in general, so most of my wardrobe was filled with silk items. And something that really troubled me was really that I ruined a lot of my silk pieces because I would put it in I either like baby detergent and try to hand wash it a little bit, but most of the time the color would still run, and I just never had the time to actually send all these for dry cleaning. And I also do not like the idea of the chemicals that are being sprayed on dry cleaning for dry cleaning materials. So that's a separate topic. There are lots of people who are okay with it, but I personally like to live my life as chemical, contactant free as possible. So the concept of wearing these materials, even if you don't develop skin irritation, is very important as you advance in your age. So if you have normal skin all your life, and then in the middle of your life, say in your 30s or 40s, you start developing a bit of sensitivity, just know that it is not normal, okay? So if you find that whenever you travel, or if there's a change in the environment, or you feel stressed, and then some parts of your body act up by developing red patches, or flaking, then it's time to get it treated. You very likely have a form of dermatitis or eczema, but you also have to look at prevention. So what we usually recommend for dermatology treatment is the treatment of the skin barrier, repairing it with ceramide-based creams with additional natural moisturizing factors. But what a lot of individuals don't understand or appreciate is that there is always a material, typically, that's coming into contact with your skin, and that material could be irritating to you. So by default, always avoid tight-fitting clothing if you think your skin is a bit sensitive. Some individuals develop what we call dermographism from tight-fitting elastic type of apparel, and also look for nature-derived and also look for plant-derived materials. Synthetic materials in general will not be as breathable for your skin as 100% plant-derived type of material, and it's also environmentally more friendly.